The stage lights went out and nobody could believe it. It was one of the most successful nights of Metallica's European tour. Thousands of fans had enthusiastically listened to the Master of Puppets songs. But that night, as the bus rolled through Swedish roads, no one knew that the history of metal music would change forever. That fear that could happen to anyone. You're doing the work of your life, living your dreams, but suddenly everything is taken away from you. September 27, 1986. 6:30 a.m. Metallica's tour bus was traveling on the dark road between Stockholm and Copenhagen in Sweden. For young men, James Hetfield, Lars Ulrich, Kirk Hammett, and Cliff Burton, were asleep in their bunks. They were on their way to becoming the world's biggest metal band. Their Master of Puppets album was the pinnacle of thrash metal. But success couldn't prevent tragedy. Cliff Burton was sleeping in the bunk at the back of the bus. He was 24 years old. Metallica's heart, soul, musical genius. He was known as the most talented musician in the band. An artist who blended classical music education with bass guitar, creating iconic solos like Anesthesia, Pulling Teeth. His hair was long, his personality calm, but on stage he transformed into a beast. That night, Cliff had played cards with Kirk Hammett. The winner would get the most comfortable bunk at the back of the bus. Cliff won. Fate perhaps played its cruelest card at that moment, but what's truly shocking is that the driver didn't notice anything. The bus skidded on the icy road. The driver lost control. The bus flipped, rolled over, and collapsed on Cliff Burton. The other members were injured but alive. Cliff died instantly. Under the weight of the bus, that brilliant musical mind was silenced forever. When James Hetfield got up from the crash site, there was broken glass, deformed metal pieces, and silence around him. That terrible, heavy silence. They searched for Cliff. They screamed. But there was no answer. Where's Cliff? Where's Cliff? This is exactly when everything changed for Metallica. Lars Ulrich was in shock. His eyes filled with tears, but he couldn't believe it. This can't be real. This must be a nightmare. Tomorrow we'll wake up and Cliff will be playing his bass guitar again. Kirk Hammett was crying silently. James was frozen. He couldn't speak. That sparkle in his eyes, that fire. It had gone out. When the ambulances arrived, everything seemed officially over. Cliff Burton's body was extracted from the wreckage. Metallica's 3 members were taken to the hospital. Their physical injuries were minor, but the wound in their souls. That wound would never heal. You haven't seen the biggest surprise yet. When Cliff's family came to Sweden, they requested a crash report. The answer to why the bus flipped was unclear. Icy road? Driver error? Nothing was certain. But for the Metallica members, it didn't matter. The result wouldn't change. Cliff was gone. The funeral was held in San Francisco. Hundreds of metal fans, musicians, and friends came. Cliff's bass guitar placed in the coffin. That image was forever etched in James's mind. Lars couldn't speak. Kirk just cried. Metallica's future was uncertain. Would the band break up? Could they continue? Could Metallica be Metallica without Cliff Burton? Wait a minute, don't miss this detail. A week after the funeral, James, Lars, and Kirk met. Nobody wanted to talk, but they had to talk. There was only one question on the table. What are we going to do? Lars spoke first. His voice was trembling. Cliff would want us to continue. He lived for metal. He lived for music. If we quit now, his legacy dies with us. James raised his head. His eyes were completely red. But how without Cliff? He was the soul of the band. Every note on the bass guitar was his signature. How can we replace him? Kirk quietly added, we can't replace him. But we can continue his path. It's our duty to keep his music alive. What you're seeing now is nothing. Metallica decided to continue. But they needed to find a new bassist. Dozens of musicians were tried. None were like Cliff. Until Jason Newsted came along. Jason was young, passionate, and a Metallica fan. But when he joined the band, what he faced wasn't admiration. It was pain, anger, and loss. James and Lars didn't treat Jason like Cliff. They didn't want to see him as a full member of the band. The message, "You're not Cliff," was felt every day, at every rehearsal. Jason lived with this psychological pressure for years. He was called a ghost member. Cliff's shadow was always over him, but what's truly shocking is how Metallica became legendary with this trauma. In 1988, the "And Justice for All" album came out. Dark, aggressive, full of anger. The pain of Cliff's death was felt in every note. The song, "One," was the story of a soldier experiencing war trauma, but it was also a reflection of Metallica's own trauma. Loss, helplessness, anger. The album achieved great success. Metallica was no longer just a metal band. It was a legend that transformed pain into music, drawing strength from tragedy. This is exactly when everything changed for Metallica. In 1991, Metallica, Black Album, came out. It became one of the best-selling metal albums in the world. Enter Sandman, Nothing Else Matters, sad but true. Every song was a masterpiece. But the emptiness in James Hetfield's eyes, that sadness. Cliff's absence was still there. Lars Ulrich said in an interview, "Cliff's death killed us. But it also made us immortal. We play for him. Every concert, every album is in his memory." When Jason Newsted left Metallica in 2001, he said, "For 14 years I lived with Cliff's ghost. I was never a real member. I was always the guy who filled Cliff's place, he didn't know yet." Lars Ulrich said in an interview, "Cliff's death killed us. But it also made us immortal. We play for him. Every concert, every album is in his memory." When Jason Newsted left Metallica in 2001, he said, "For 14 years I lived with Cliff's ghost. I was never a real member. I was always the guy who filled Cliff's place, he didn't know yet." Cliff Burton's legacy didn't just live on in Metallica. His innovative style on bass guitar influenced all generations of metal music. Anesthesia, Pulling Teeth, is still one of the hardest pieces that bassists try to learn. His courage to blend classical music with metal inspired countless musicians. When Metallica was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2009, Jason Newsted and Robert Trujillo, the new bassist, took the stage and played together in Cliff's memory. At that moment, thousands of people cried. Metallica's members cried. Because Cliff was still there. In every note of the music, in every rhythm, in every solo. "You won't believe this, but..." James Hetfield said in a 2016 interview, after Cliff's death, "Every day I wake up I think, why him? Why not me? That night on the bus, I could have been in that bunk. Kirk could have been. But it was Cliff. And this question has been bothering me for 30 years, Lars Ulrich added. "Cliff made us better people, better musicians. Because his loss taught us how fragile life is. It taught us to take music seriously. It taught us to value every moment." Metallica is still touring today. They have millions of fans. Grammy Awards, platinum albums, legendary concerts. But before every concert, just before going on stage, the band comes together. And they look at Cliff Burton's photo. "This is for you, Cliff. What you're seeing now is nothing." In 2016, on the 30th anniversary of Cliff Burton's death, Metallica held a special concert. They played only the Master of Puppets album from start to finish. When the song Orion was played, the masterpiece written by Cliff, purely instrumental, 8 minutes long, the stage went completely dark. Sound effects were given as if only Cliff's bass guitar was playing. 20,000 people stood, listening in silence. Tears were shed. Metal heads bowed. Because at that moment, Cliff Burton was back on stage. When the concert ended, James Hetfield said into the microphone, "Cliff, you're still with us. In every note, in every rhythm, in every breath. You are the heart of Metallica. And you will be forever." Today, young metal musicians hang Cliff Burton's posters on their walls. They try to learn his bass playing. They start with Anesthesia, they fail, they try again. Because Cliff Burton's legacy isn't just music. It's the passion for reaching perfection, the spirit of never giving up. You haven't seen the biggest surprise yet. In 2023, Metallica released the album 72 Seasons. The last song on the album is Inamorata, an 11-minute epic piece. And on the bass guitar, traces of Cliff Burton's style are everywhere. Robert Trujillo didn't imitate him as a tribute to Cliff, but carried his spirit. James Hetfield said about the album, "We're still in that bus. Every day we live that crash. But now we understand what Cliff taught us. Life is short, music is eternal. And we will keep playing forever." Lars Ulrich added, "Without Cliff there would be no Metallica. But without Cliff's death, there wouldn't be the Metallica we are now. Tragedy forced us to find out who we are." That night, September 27, 1986, when the bus flipped, nobody could believe it. Nobody could believe Cliff Burton died. Nobody could believe Metallica would continue, but they did. And today, 38 years later, Metallica is still on stage. Still playing metal. Still keeping Cliff Burton's name alive, at every concert, on every album, in every note. Cliff is there. Invisible but felt. Lost but unforgettable, Metallica's story is the answer to the question of how to live with loss. You can't eliminate pain. But you can turn it into strength. You can't escape tragedy. But you can create a masterpiece with it. When the bus flipped, nobody could believe it, but the heart of metal music stopped that night. And it never beat the same way again. Cliff Burton died on September 27, 1986. But his legacy, his music, his spirit, they're still alive, in every Metallica song.